Like a very, very hungry person with a mountain of toast. Get ready to jam and get ready to slam jam. I said that wrong, but I'm not going for a second take. Hello, everybody. This is MattyBoo, the internet's own. Alongside me is the world's tallest. What are you, Jeremy? The world's tallest
idiot.
Well, I mean, I wasn't going to be that nasty. The world's tallest man of pure gold. He is the literal head of soldiers of which you put on the mountainous head of wrestling knowledge himself. It is the giraffe of me, Jeremy Graves. How are you doing, my good sir?
Not too bad. I've got a lot to live up to after that introduction. Yeah, not too bad. Disclaimer up front, folks. If it sounds like at any point I mute randomly, it's because I've had like a throat problem for like a month, so I randomly cough either very loudly or very dryly, which isn't even a word. So if that happens, that's your little heads up front as to why I might be sounding weird occasionally. But otherwise, yeah, not too bad. I'm looking forward to talking about this because it's been a bit of build-up, to say the least, in various ways, and I think we're going to have a fun discussion on this because it should bring up some interesting points maybe for the future, but also maybe how the perception going in is actually a bit different to what it actually was.
Indeed, indeed. And what we're talking about today is, of course, the inaugural Grand Slam Australia, a show that I swear to God, when they first announced this, number one, it was going to be in a stadium. And number two, they really did make it feel like it was going to be a massive pay-per-view event without saying it was a pay-per-view. But of course, Jeremy, it was always going to be a TV special. What they didn't tell you was it was basically an episode of Collision, but a very, very good one indeed. We'll be breaking all of this down, along with some other subsidiary stuff that was on the sidelines, like Ring of Honor was recorded at the same time, and also some AEW adjacent news that happened during the week as well. I think the best thing we can do right now is we'll just kick off straight away with something that has got nothing to do with Grand Slam, but it is AEW adjacent.
I can say on topic as always, folks. Here we go.
Some news happened. We had some releases, and they were pretty big ones as well. These were people that basically wanted to be let go by the company for the last year or so. We are, of course, talking about the releases of Miro, Malachi Black, Ricky Starks, and I think there was a fourth one there as well. Oh, we're currently negotiating the release of Ray Phoenix as well. But on top of these, two things of note. Number one, Miro has started appearing in WWE adjacent videos in that he has recently appeared in an episode of Celtic Workout with Sheamus. But the biggest one of all is that Ricky Starks appeared in an episode of NXT and was in a video package for last night's Vengeance Day, which we won't talk about because we are the AEW show.
Also, quite frankly, I ain't seen it. So,
no,
you know.
I did, and there's one of the reasons, the other one being a migraine, that I had about 2 hours sleep. But Dr. Pepper cures all ills, right?
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor, which is why I also made sure it was only on the instruction side. But, see, I'm learning, Jeremy.
Hey, you got it.
The crucial thing about this is that was when Ricky Starks appeared in NXT, the commentary didn't mention him by name, and neither did he. Because after all, Jeremy, we all know who he is, and we all know why he's there.
I'll tell you who he is, Matty. He is currently the artist formerly known as Ricky Starks.
In other words, the deal was struck literally half an hour before the show was due to go live, and they had no idea on how to advertise him. Because they want to get rid of his name because there's already a person called Starks in the company. Because they can't share names. Yeah, Zoe Starks.
Oh, good point. I've genuinely not thought about that. Yeah, good point. All right.
Yeah, I learned this. Of course, they don't like having anyone with the same name as one another, which is why they always come up with some really stupid batshit names in NXT, which they stick along with.
to derail this now, I want the first names that come out of your mouth, Matty. Right. What is Ricky Stark's name potentially going to be when it's officially announced? You have until 3, 2, 1, go.
Ricky strikes.
Oh, okay. So you're still keeping the Ricky with it then?
Of course, Ricky's like Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen. You've got to keep Ricky in there. Otherwise, what are we doing, Jeremy? What are we doing? But
you see, for me, there's part of me. I'm already derailing this, but there we go.
No.
Part of me thinks if it's not going to involve Ricky or be like a riff on the Ricky Starks name, it's almost got to be the polar opposite. So I'm talking like Timothy Broadberry or something, something so outlandishly off the wall. Everyone's like, what the actual heck?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we already know that NXT has basically trademarked 12 names. I'm not going through them all because they're all equally stupid. But, yeah, it could be. I don't think he's going to have any of those names because, again, they struck the deal like so soon before recording. They must have had a plan to use those names with like pre-existing people before Ricky came along. So I think the fear of him having one of those names is like literally not null and void. But I think they haven't quite figured out. I think what's going to happen is when NXT airs this coming week and he signs his contract in front of everyone, that's when we will have any kind of potential name change then. Like we did in the olden days when we had Kenta turn into Hideo Itami. Have I got that right?
Yep.
And the same with Prince Devitt when he became Finn Balor. They had his name and then they dissolved it into his new name. I think we'll probably get this with Ricky as well. But we digress. Other things in motion is the fact that Malachi Black was like the first to go in this round of releases, contract expiries, and so forth. The interesting news of note was I think they planned this because, of course, Zelina Vega is now broken away from the LWO, is wrestling exclusively for SmackDown. So you've got to believe that if Aleister Black returns to the company, that is where his destination will be. Miro, that's up in the air. Who the heck knows? Miro is such a character of mystery these days. But the fact that he did appear with Sheamus again on a WWE sanctioned YouTube show like Celtic Workout, that suggests that he may well be on his way as well.
His League of Nations brethren,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I forgot about that. Along with Wade Barrett. Talk about some hosses. Oh, wow. But yes. But we will move right back into AEW, and we are going to be talking about Grand Slam. Of course, the other stuff that happened away from the cameras for now is that we had an ROH recording as well, as they filmed Global Wars, which at the time I assumed, because we've had Global Wars in Ring of Honor before, I assumed was going to be a pay-per-view. I haven't seen that appear in any place. I think it will be on a club. It will probably be an episode of Ring of Honor in itself, which is fair enough. But the matches that were recorded during those events was Bandido and the Outrunners versus the Learning Tree. Joy. The Ring of Honor Pure Championship was Lee Moriarty versus Robbie Eagles.
I bet that is going to be a really fun match to watch.
It's making me want to watch the show for sure. Mark Davis, Australia's own Mark Davis, Aussie, versus Tommy Knight. The Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championships was Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara versus the Maximum Male Model Collection. And then finally, we had the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship, where Athena, formerly known as Ember Moon, faced off against Alex Windsor, or Mrs. Will Ospreay. I'm looking forward to this. I might actually give this a look, because I think what they basically did here was an episode of Ring of Honor. And from that lineup, it's going to be an interesting show to check out. I think we can pivot from this to the overall crowd response, as it were, for Grand Slam. I thought that this crowd was absolutely amazing. You thought from the initial reports that the tickets didn't sell quite as well as they had hoped. Which is why they changed from a venue to an arena. Changed venues from a stadium to an arena. You think, oh God, the end is nigh. But I look at this and it looked immense. And this was another crowd who really understood the assignment and they lent all in, pun intended. And I thought this was a terrific crowd, quite frankly, especially when they then indulged in a chant of Moxley is a wanker. A masturbator for those outside of Australia, New Zealand, and the UK, of course. For those who
it's a very Commonwealth-based chant, is what I would say.
It very much is. Jeremy, what did you think about the crowds?
I thought the entire presentation was great, and it was a packed arena. Everyone was up for it, and I'm sure we'll come on to this, regardless of it being a collision or not. The debut show in Australia was always going to be good fun. The debut in any market is going to be good fun internationally. It just is. We've seen it multiple times. And you can tell this Aussie crowd were really up for it, partly helped by what matches they were being given. When you get given Ospreay and Omega teaming for the first time ever against two guys who are also phenomenal, freaking great. Yes, sign me the heck up. I'll buy a ticket and sit in the rafters. I don't mind. And, also, I think I seem to recall, I think the arena can be scaled for about 20k of audience in that region, because slight divergent, but there's an on-topic point here. A metal band from Australia called Parkway Drive recently did their 20th anniversary tour, and that was where they did their first show of the tour, and they said it was their largest headline indoor show that they've done in Australia, and someone mentioned in passing between 18 and 20k. So it's a big arena to say. It's kind of almost O2 levels if you're from the UK and London and whatnot. So it was a big arena. Everyone clearly was up for it, and you could also tell at one point the alcohol had been flowing for a while as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I will be absolutely honest, and I'll say this to the people watching at the moment or listening. Me and Jamie have had a series of disagreements about the how AEW presented Grand Slam leading up to this, as in it was only up until a fortnight when they actually bothered to start actually having storyline stuff lead into Grand Slam, with only Mariah May and Timeless Toni Storm being the one foundation, as it were, to anything that even remotely seemed like a must-watch. And yet, I don't think there was a dud among any of the matches we saw here. And yet again, AEW, when they put on a big show, regardless of the lead-up, it's always must watch, and this was no exception. And I think for future reference, they have already announced that they're going to be doing Grand Slam Australia again for next year.
Good.
Don't make that a TV special. Simply put. Don't.
So if I may jump in with a couple of thoughts. Excuse me for a second. Quick cough, hopefully you didn't hear that. So my thinking is slightly differently on this in a number of ways. When it comes to the matches that were on the show, I actually think this is one of the better built television specials that AEW has done in a long time. Because you think about it, the Omega stuff was basically built up from the beginning of January when he first appeared back on TV, and immediately got the Don Callis involvement, and there was an Ospreay tease. So that's actually been teased and built up for over the course of a good month and a half. The Harley Cameron stuff maybe was about 3 or 4 weeks or so, kind of just gradually dipping in and whatnot and trying to build up Harley. The Okada and Buddy Matthews stuff, that's been built up gradually as well, notwithstanding the Malachi leaving and Buddy and Brody and Julia breaking away from the House of Black, if you want, and forming the Hounds of Hell. And the Mariah and Tony stuff, obviously, everyone knew that was going to be the rematch. That's where it was going to happen. It was the how. And the way they did it, I don't think anyone expected how they got to this point. And it was really good fun, regardless of when and where Tony returned, when the things happened, how many people may or may not have seen it. It worked. In terms of watching the shows, I have loved AEW television. It's been, even before January, it's been really solid. Even the Continental Classic stuff was really freaking good again. AEW's on a really good streak. So in terms of building up the content on the show itself, as in the matches, I actually think this has been one of the better built shows overall. And we're still able to pepper more in with the Moxley stuff as well. That was the other stuff. Like, that's going to be going on further.
Yeah.
But I do think this has actually been a very strong build to the show in terms of matches.
I will counter some of that with, we didn't know whether certain storylines were going to be implemented into Grand Slam until they announced certain matches, because
Fair
one
point.
of the things that AEW did consistently all the way around, and they did this with Wrestle Dynasty as well, was there was storyline stuff that was going into subjacent programming, whilst advertisements for future shows beyond that point were being shown visually on screen for everyone to see, with very little regard to, say, like a Wrestle Dynasty or a Grand Slam. So it then felt that the overall importance for said shows was like pushed down as a consequence. And you simply should not do that as a wrestling promotion. If you're going to have storylines that are high of importance on shows, you make those shows equally must watch and you advertise accordingly. And I think that AEW partially failed on that front.
So this is a key detail which we do both agree on, is that the advertising of this event as a whole, forgetting the actual content on the show, but the actual advertising of the event, you could argue, was one of the worst jobs AEW has done in quite a while. And that's coming from someone who is a regular watcher of AEW and is a big fan of it, just in general, because it was confusing when this show exactly was happening. And that's partly because of the NBA All-Star Game stuff in America, so that's fine, whatever. But in terms of the clarity of what kind of show it was, we've been talking during the week privately, and I brought up that Grand Slams have always been Dynamite and or Collision specials. So in terms of continuity for what Grand Slam is as a brand, it actually does make sense. But like you've alluded to, it was never clearly stated as such. It was never billed as Grand Slam Australia Collision or whatever.
Yeah.
Like how we watch it on Triller TV, it's labeled as a Collision episode.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because it's a Saturday night.
And was ultimately presented as such when the first thing you heard going into the show was Elton John. So I don't think that was put into the live audience at the time. I think that was something that was put in post, because there was no Collision episode this week. This was basically this filled that slot. And
this was Collision, literally.
This essentially was Collision. It was in its slot, albeit a bit later, and was your 2-hour slot for AEW wrestling.
A damn good one too.
And I will also say, before we move on from about the AEW's like weird sort of like, what's the best thing? It's chaotic build and chaotic promotion of their like shows. Rewind a little bit to January when your your sole promotion for Wrestle Dynasty was an in-the-ring promo from Mercedes Moné, whilst all the promotion behind her on the Titantron, on the barriers all around her, was all promoting Revolution, which at that point was 2 months away. So
I agree, if I may say. I don't know if this has actually come out officially, but there was some scuttlebutt that happened to appear in a feed of mine that apparently it may have been something to do with the fact that because Wrestle Dynasty wasn't on TNT or Max, effectively they went, don't promote a show that's not on our channel. In essence, not outright, but kind of going, hey, look, I get you're part of this show, but we're not, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that's not me defending anyone. It's just kind of when you have that context in mind, it kind of would make a little bit of sense. But fundamentally, I agree. It was a bad build when it comes to Wrestle Dynasty in general.
Absolutely.
From the perspective of AEW promotion.
And as we've debated, like in the days, if not weeks in the past, it's like, at what point? And I totally understand that Warner Brothers Discovery have a share in the company now as part of the deal. However, there comes a point where you have to take a look and say, how far does my I'm trying to think of the right word, Jeremy, but at what point do I have to like put this on television and that's how we do it? You're putting all your eggs in that basket and putting it on there, carry you as a company, because you can't just say, right, we've got to do this because of TV deals. Part of the deal is that they have a streaming platform now. They have Max. So at that point, and I'm going to say as it is, terrestrial television everywhere, across the board, is a dying concept now. Most of us, more often than not, now embrace streaming platform, whether it's the free model or a paid tier. It doesn't matter. A lot of us watch on internet. And so you have to look into this and think, do some deep thinking here. Think, if we can put this on a streaming platform like Max, like the diehard wrestling fans could be able to go and view it. They are the people that will just get up at silly o'clock, because you have done it, I have done it, quite a few people have done it. I did it last night. We'll stay up and watch it whatever time they put it on, and then you can put it on terrestrial TV for the casuals. And between the two, you get yourself a healthy number. You got to start implementing. You've got this streaming platform now. Whatever gets put on TBS, TNT, now also simulcasts on Max. But with Max, you have the option to put stuff on live. There isn't like as far as I know, not a channel version of Max.
Yeah, it's excuse me. Yeah, it is just a streaming service. But I mean, ultimately, what I'd like to think is that this will develop as things go on. It's like stage one, get AEW onto Max. Next stage, okay, is there any other adjacent programming, which probably requires licensing stuff as well, not to get business talky and whatnot. But unfortunately, it does all come down to business and money. So I would like to think that in the case of Wrestle Dynasty, it wasn't the execution of promoting it on the AEW side. It wasn't great. I'm sure there are reasons that we'll never find out. But one would like to think, if another event like this occurs, strictly happening in Japan from a New Japan side with big AEW involvement, that it would be different and something could be figured out.
Yeah. We could literally talk about this for ages, but we are working to a schedule, people. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to talk about the show now. What a concept, Jeremy.
Concept.
And we kick off with Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega defeating the Don Callis family of Will Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita with Mark Davis in a tag team match. And I like this. I think that Will Ospreay and Carl Fletcher have the cobras to fight each other literally forever, which don't do that. You haven't got the stamina to do. But I enjoyed this. What did you think, Jeremy?
Excellent opener. I mean, if anything, I would actually argue in hindsight, you probably could have had this as the main event. But because of the way it was working in America, I believe, like this was the first match after the NBA All-Star game. So having this match first, it makes total sense. And it was well worth it. Omega and Ospreay as a team is such good fun. And they managed to do some insane stuff together as well. Like there was that excellent double team of the combined One-Winged Angel and Hidden Blade combo near the end, which was just mental. As it were. I'll try not to just keep saying the word mental all the time. But the chemistry all four of these guys have is really, really good. And the thing that also helped it, which we alluded to near the start of the show, the fact that Australia got to see Omega and Ospreay team together for the first time ever, it was a spectacle moment. It was one of those you have to be there moments. And the energy from the crowd, just even for Ospreay's entrance, was phenomenal. And it just everything about this was really good fun. Don Callis getting involved was good fun as well. The few times that he did, and also blatantly just like going straight back on commentary with the headset, being like, "I did nothing. What are you talking about?" It was a really good chapter point in this whole Don Callis family story saga involving Omega and Ospreay together. Just a really good chapter point and well worth going out of folks' way to see.
And also, it feeded not just one feud, but two, where you've got the ongoing saga between Will Ospreay and Carl Fletcher, but also you got Kenny Omega, Omega versus the Alpha Konosuke Takeshita, and it did a really good job. You could literally then take this on two different directions, and you're going to have like a banger of a match. One other thing that they sort of didn't really put through in commentary, and I don't think they've really done this, but we've seen it visually, is the inclusion of Mark Davis, which was covered eloquently by Don Callis, where he said, well, doesn't matter what Mark Davis thinks. He's under contract to me. He does what I tell him, which is a beautiful way of having your Mark Davis like be on the side of bad, and yet him like basically him being what Wheeler Yuta should have been in the Death Riders, being like a conscientious objector. And I hope they lean into that a little bit more. Either he can literally be the guy that like literally sort of breaks away from the group, or like is the ultimate like Achilles heel in the Don Callis family, or he can turn fully bad, which, to be fair, on my part, he should be anyway, because he's such a natural heel.
And a lot of his moveset can lend well to it as well. And I do agree that the way that Don Callis, I think it was on Dynamite when Mark Davis was revealed as the mystery opponent, and the reason he gave was something to the effects of, while Davis was out injured, Kyle Fletcher was given power of attorney for Aussie Open, effectively for both of them. Like Davis effectively said, yeah, Kyle, just make sure we're good. Like, you know, make sure we're both good. And so when Kyle joined the family, it also by default then brought Davis over. And it's like, on the surface level, part of you is like, that can't possibly be legal. But then you also think, you know what? It's a loophole that they've said. I'll take it. Whatever. If that's the way you close that door so that everything can move forward, I'll freaking take it.
I will counter that with wrestling.
Exactly.
Not really much.
Phenomenal opener match, though. Phenomenal opener.
It was a very strong opener, but also one of the longest matches on the card as well. And that's something else you got to say. We then move on to Mercedes Mone and Harley Cameron. And my God, everybody, my God, this was one of my favorite matches on the entire card. I fully admit that just a few months ago, I wasn't really feeling Harley Cameron. But I always thought she was literally a good hand, which is why she kept losing to everybody. But she has come on in leaps and bounds, and it's like they're literally letting her be an all-round person, a whole wrestler. And my God, she is possibly one of the most entertaining characters in the entire roster.
Agreed.
And I freaking adore her. I absolutely adore her. What I don't want to see here, if I could do a little nitpick on the overall booking of the women's division, I know I do this every single bloody time we review one of these, but I will always say that AEW's handling of the women's division isn't particularly great. And one of the things that they're very, very good at is building somebody up so they can be a reasonable opponent to your champion. And then as soon as that match is done, that person is down the bottom and you'll probably find them in Ring of Honor somewhere. Or they're on like one of the lesser like portions of the card. Or in the case of like a Nyla Rose, you never see them again.
Effectively almost saying like, is Harley now just going to be cycled out of the equation for a while?
Which I don't want to see. What I want to see, Jeremy, is fine. Don't put her in a title picture for a while. But by God, make her a dominant person. She is an attraction. She is very much one of those people that you can pay to see and enjoy her matches. And she is an all-rounder. I cannot state this enough. This person is an all-rounder. Push her to the moon. Some of the best wrestlers out there, some of the best characters in wrestling through the ages have never held a world championship, really, or even been a champion, but you are paid to see them. And you could put her on that. I would love to see her be a world champion one day. Give her a few more months, give her a year, but do not disregard her. Do not sleep on her. Let her be an attraction. Give her, hell, now she's had a losing streak. Give her a winning streak. Make her the Goldberg and make her matches incredibly fun.
I really enjoyed this match. However, I want to say this first of all, then I'll get to the however, not just doing a tease for the sake of it now.
I'm preparing for you, Jeremy. Go
on.
All
right, fair dues. So I think in terms of Mercedes Moné as a character, this is the most character development the Mercedes Moné character has had in AEW, maybe since the Willow match, because that already had pre-existing history with the ankle break in New Japan and stuff and whatnot. So there was a little bit of story there. I might be drawing a complete blank because Mercedes has had some damn good matches. We've said it on this podcast before on pay-per-view. Like, some of the matches have been freaking outstanding, quite frankly. But this was the first one where it felt like there was a story behind the match in quite a long time. And I think that's what was the attraction to this was, let's be fair, Harley ain't gonna win, but what if?
She made me believe.
And sometimes it's the what if that takes you in there. I was surprised how much, and this is going to make me sound like such a twerp, but so be it. But I was surprised Harley got as much offense as she did. I was expecting this to maybe go 5 minutes, not in a condescending way. I just imagined that Mercedes was going to be riled up. Harley would get a couple of moves in. There would be like maybe one big moment, and then Mercedes would basically just deck her and just go, right, that's done, move on. But I was pleasantly surprised it was a back and forth match. But part of me thought from a storyline perspective, it made a bit more sense given that Harley openly admitted she is newer to this and still getting better. And she has had one win on television leading into this. Part of me just thought that balance felt a bit off, but that's like the biggest nitpick I could probably ever draw from this, because this was still good fun. And the crowd were up for it as well. Also, Harley's ring jacket, that like heart thing that she was wearing was so damn cool. And also as well, shout out to Mercedes' ring gear and her whole look. Yeah. She was very much in Aussie mode and it was great fun.
She joined Aussie Open that day. Soph was watching with me and she said, because she's now gotten used to certain wrestlers coming out essentially cosplaying other characters. And she kept turning to me a few times saying, okay, what's she come out as? And ultimately I said to her, she's come out as Australia. Although Toni Storm had that beat. But no, having looked at her, I basically said, well, she's basically come out as the Grand Slam logo because all of her attire matched the colours of the overall arena. I am in full agreement with you. I don't necessarily need to see Harley win a title for a long time now, but I don't want to see it diminished. I think this should now be the kickstart of a Harley Cameron massive push now. And not just like have her like down the bottom of the card that we've seen so many people. I'm going to say this now. Mercedes Moné, people look at her in AEW and sometimes they say, lol, Mercedes wins. When you look at her actual matches, she's actually very giving. Like, very giving. Look at the matches she's had with Statlander. And you look at them and look at the matches she had with Willow. I'd say the only time where things have been a little bit off is when she was facing off with Britt Baker. And there's probably reasons and rationales behind that. But then you look at all of Mercedes' matches since then, and you look what she's actually given these ladies in each of her matches. Like, I'd say that's very, very... I mean, the whole point of these matches is you elevate these women to then make you look good. You don't sandbag and you don't like literally go, look, You literally, you don't. And I think it works both ways. And I want to see a third match between Mercedes and Statlander because the last two are incredible. I want to see Willow put on the top of the podium again. I keep saying it. Make that woman a world champion one day because, my God, Willow deserves it.
100% agree. And I think it was funny you mentioned the Britt Baker match, actually. I'll say it, not in a bad way, but I was trying to remember what other defenses Mercedes had. I was in the damn stadium and I forgot that match happened. Like the Britt Baker match. And that was another example of that should have been a storyline thing. But even that story itself was went a bit ramshackle because there were weird reactions and weird things going on. Like the actual build to it was very, very weird. But fundamentally, I agree. Mate, Willow, give me more Willow.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean UCN actually in the Twitch chat. By the way, if you are watching, you can watch via YouTube, you can watch via Twitch. Please engage in the conversation. We absolutely love to see what you've got to think. Obviously, be nice to one another because we are all one. But he's put a couple of good points here. He said, I will give it to AEW. The women's matches seem more important than the men's. I think this is definitely true of Grand Slam, regardless of what its stat is as a TV special or an event. The fact that the main event was Timeless Toni Storm versus Mariah May speaks an awful lot. The fact we had 2 women's matches. Technically, I think we had about 3 if you add in the Ring of Honor Championship. I love to see like more of an equal balance between the women and the men. I think NXT's got it on lock at the moment. It absolutely feels like all of the women in NXT are absolute superstars. And I want to see more of this happening in AEW, quite frankly, because they've got a talent roster that's fantastic, second to none. Don't sleep on TNA, though, because I think TNA still, to this day, has a very strong women's division. Like Masha Slamovich. Sorry. She's an incredible champion. Go check out some of her matches, especially the ones she's had with Jordan Grace. But also, Sean has also said, push Megan. And, oh my God, talk about an absolute hoss.
Megan Bain we're talking about, right?
Yeah, Megan Bain. Oh, my God. From the minute she entered that ring for the women's gauntlet match, you could just smell the money, quite frankly.
We need to know more about her though, because admittedly I'd never seen Megan Bain before that Casino Gauntlet, and I've kind of purposefully not looked her up, as it were. Potential poor choice of words there, but you know what I mean. I've not looked about her history online and stuff and matches because I want to see how AEW is going to present her as someone who is complete unknown to her.
Would you believe, Jeremy, that Megan Bain is now on her 2nd contract with AEW?
They've referenced a few times that she wrestled on AEW Dark a few times before, but I've not seen those matches. But again, my first time knowingly seeing Megan Bain, if I have potentially seen one of their matches before. So
yeah, so if you believe like certain reports, and I always say do your fact checking at least. She's actually been under contract for a little while, and during that time she went off to Japan. So she went off an excursion, and I think it was Stardom she appeared in. Don't quote me on that.
I think it was only because Mariah alluded to it on commentary one time.
Yeah. And something similar happened with Anna Jay, where she went off an excursion and she had a little run in Stardom, and that, Jeremy, was a consensus for Anna Jay's babyface term was she went to Japan.
Yeah. Hey, mate, sometimes a little story goes a long way, you know.
Yeah. So, what I'm going to keep hitting Tony Khan over the bloody head with this. Push your women's division. You've got an excellent talent pool there.
Agreed.
Freaking utilize them. Are we all done talking about Mercedes and Harley?
Yes.
Also, fantastic hand puppet, and there was one point where Harley grabbed the hand puppet, and the first thing you see on the camera was the Mercedes hand puppet turn up, and then you see Harley. Like little things like that is why Harley is going to be a fantastically loved character all round. Anyway, we then move on to the Death Riders, John Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli, with Marina Shafir, defeating the tag team of Cope and Jay White via technical submission, or a match as I like to call the match where all of the saliva was spilt, because oh my God, that was disgusting.
Mate, when it's a Brisbane brawl, you know.
I was about to say, otherwise known as a Brisbane brawl, apparently. I still think that Jay White is a natural heel, and what the hell is this what's in this for him ultimately. Like, bizarrely, Jay White is what Edge was like over a decade ago. Jay White should be the ultimate opportunist.
If there was ever a reason I wish Adam Copeland could be called Edge in AEW, it's so we could have the team of Switchblade and Edge. It writes itself. I've got to say, I agree with you about his heelish mannerisms and whatnot. I don't know what it is. There's something about this pairing of Copeland and Jay White that just works.
Because
they've almost kind of got a similar energy about them. They don't really what's the way to put this? They complement each other, both in the ring and like in promos. It's just that fun energy about them. They've got the same vibe, and it works. And in this match, I mean, the ending's a different story to this match. I've got thoughts on the ending, but this match was exactly what you expected it to be. It was lots of brawling. Of course, there was eventually interference, which irked me to no end, but it was fully expected. But this is exactly what you expected. But the other thing, which I hope is brought up at some point, where are the guns in the concept of Jay White? Because they've come back. We haven't even had a little thing of, hey, welcome back, guns up, boom, boom, and whatnot.
I think that faction's been disbanded quietly because you don't see Jay White reference the Bang Bang Gang anymore. And when the guns turned up, like all of the presentation for the Bang Bang Gang. Jesus Christ.
Bullet Club Gold.
Yeah, they haven't really been called that for a while either, and I've got the t-shirt. But all of the presentation for the faction is now within them. And by the way, I think they're an incredible tag team.
Oh, that match with the Hurt Syndicate was freaking great.
It was fantastic. Go out your way to check that out. It was really
Get out and watch it.
Get out and watch that. Just ignore us and the other thing that's just happened here in the future. Go to the past and watch that. Yeah, I think they've been silently disbanded now. I don't think they exist as a faction. I think it's all been retconned away, and Jay White is a literal lonesome dove right now. He was dressed like one.
I wonder. Good point. I wonder. First of all, I hope that's not the case because I actually really like the Bang Bang Gang just as a group, especially when Juice Robinson's there. The energy is just off the chain. But I wonder if this might become a New Japan style faction in that they're a faction, and when the time is needed and someone blows that conch whistle or whatever, and then they all come back together and the powers combine and they defeat the mortal enemies and whatnot. But otherwise, they just go and do their own thing. And it's never brought up again.
By their powers combined, they form Captain Dickhead. Captain Dickhead, he's a healer. Anyway, let's have a look here. So Sean says, AEW used to have fantastic factions. Remember the Pinnacle? Oh my God, that didn't last long, did it?
It lasted a War Games match. That was about it.
Sean, I will counter that saying, remember when AEW had a series of fantastic trios teams because they were going to introduce trios championships, and then, well, stuff happened. But yeah, I know what you mean. They're great at forming factions and not very good at disassembling them all that much. That's another bit of a bugbear I got about AEW, especially when one of your figureheads is MJF, but I digress.
There you go. But as for this Brisbane Brawl, though,
yeah,
I will say the ending, it irks me a bit because it was just that thing of, just damn interference in a bloomin' Death Riders match. What else is you? I hate to say it. Again, speaking of someone who's an AEW fan, it's kind of getting to the point where it feels like a Roman Reigns match from when he was champion.
Remember whenever we had a heel women's champion in AEW and the matches always ended the same way with their seconds, always running interference, and then the champion wins? We're getting this, but with the Death Riders. What is now the point of the Death Riders, Jeremy? Can you tell me, on the top of your head, right now, what is the point of the Death Riders?
Change the face of AEW for the better in the future.
But how?
Because.
See, their entire menace is gone, isn't it? Their entire menace is gone.
The thing is, though, no one's been able to get a leg up on them. Even on Dynamite, they got the briefcase, and then I'm convinced Copeland screwed up his wording when he started hitting the briefcase with Spike. Spike, the freaking 2x4 nail job thing, didn't even make it to Australia. I guarantee you that thing is stuck in customs. Guarantee you. But now the reason I bring up the interference thing, not just dodging your question, I'll try and come back to it, but is as soon as Wheeler Yuta hit the ring, my immediate thought was, this is where the guns come out and help Jay White and help Copeland and Jay get a win over the Death Riders, because no one can beat the buggers.
No.
Like even on Dynamite this week with the Trios title, part of me thought in that moment, Undisputed should get the win. It felt like this is a moment here. Someone's got to get a win on the Death Riders. It was either that moment or it was going to be in Brisbane, and it was neither. And again, the big loophole was, well, what's the explanation? Okay, you could say the guns didn't travel to Australia. Fine. But in terms of backing up their compadre, there's currently no reason why they aren't. It's much like Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. But from a television perspective, why the heck aren't they together? Because they were best friends for freaking ages. And you couldn't separate them. Like, it's just... we talked about the loophole earlier that got closed. I can't remember what it was now. But it was the Mark Davis thing. That's a little loophole that was closed by simply one sentence that said very clearly in a prominent moment. And this is what this feels like.
I'd say I don't even know if that was the booking that actually did that, or if it was actually Don Callis himself that put that in, because he thought, hang on, this is kind of bullshit. Let me try and retcon something in, because remember the whole all of a sudden Stokely and Stat were broken up, and it was up to Stat on social media to explain to you why suddenly she's starting to feel like a good guy again. Because I'm putting Willow away. And then the booking went, oh, well, actually, you never actually broke the friendship bracelet. You clearly did actually snap in pieces in front of her like several months ago. It's like, it's two steps back. But
as much as I like AEW, there are definitely some weird storyline loopholes we can get there.
Absolutely. And the only reason why I gave you this sort of hardline questioning, Jeremy, is I haven't forgotten how this all started. Like, Moxley was alluding that they had a higher power.
I was going to bring this up in a minute, actually. That's what I was going to say. Like, there was allusions to there being someone else involved, which conveniently at the time was when that photo of Tony Khan and Shane McMahon appeared online.
So, where is this higher power? What is the ultimate end game of the Death Riders? And also, they were teasing that basically the Death Riders was AEW's newest answer, because they've tried this before with the Dark Order. This is their newest idea of an NWO faction. And to which all of AEW was banding together to try and stop this from happening. Meanwhile, you had Moxley saying about how all these people have massive egos and they'll hide away like chicken craps and all that other stuff. The fact is that certain characters are no longer there, and other people that were banding together have now backed off, which proves Moxley 100% right. Why should we back any of these people at all?
Because television ratings. Also, we have a very important question from the chat. I hope you're ready for this.
I'm just
courtesy of Harriet.
Yeah.
So the Death Riders are currently the tuxedo mask of AEW?
So the Death Riders' work here was done, Harriet. This is what we're getting at then.
Just it's how it goes.
I enjoyed this match. I think it was one of the weakest. I mean, that's harsh to say because some really cool stuff happened in the match. I'd say that every match on this card was actually really fun. But if I were to pick something that was I would say was the weakest, I would call this tag match it. Because of basically all the stuff that you mentioned before, yet again, it was another Death Rider beat up. No one from the back came, not even the Guns, but no one from the back that you could have picked to go, let's run and protect our holy saviors here, which is the whole point of the Death Riders from months ago. It was like everyone from AEW against them, but never mind that. I would say this was, for me, the weakest part of the card. And I'm not sure whether you can agree with me with that or not.
Yeah, I agree.
I say, Sean, that Mox should only be a lone wolf. I love all of the presentation of Mox right now. He cuts amazing promos. He's the sole reason I think why that faction is incredible. Other than the great heel work from each of the members as well when they have their own matches. But I get the same vibe from Mox right now than I did with Bray Wyatt when he was saying all of this spooky, evil promos. And then, he'll probably get beaten by John Cena in 5 minutes. You know? I'm getting the same vibe from Mox. And I shouldn't be having that because his promo work is incredible right now.
Ultimately, this is... I still maintain from when we did like the predictions thing in January, this is going to build up to Darby and Mox.
Yeah.
And we're sort of in a bit of a holding pattern. But, this actually... say your point, and I'll come back to the actual ending of the match. So go for it.
I'm in full agreement with you. This is ultimately what this is going to be. They're in a holding pattern for Darby to come and win that championship. And yet again, this is typical AEW / Tony Khan booking of, I can't have the thing I wanted to have, so I'm just going to sit on it for a while, which we have seen as from Mariah May's run as champion, which, again, we'll get to later. And we've seen this a few times, especially through all of the injury stuff that we had about 2 or 3 years ago as well, and the interim championship bollocks. You know, we've seen this before, and we're pretty much at this point now. I'm sure once Darby Allin's good to go, people will start rising up again, and Tony will get to tell the story he wanted to tell in the first place. But I think that's what we're at, and it's getting stale.
Darby's got to go to Mount Everest first. You've got to do that.
Oh, my God.
So now that I've reminded you of that, so the ending to the match where it was like the bulldog choke, on Copeland, part of me was very surprised that Mox got the submission on Copeland, because that's not because of, what's the way to put this? Not because of traditional thinking of why would you beat the challenger, but it was the fact it was so decisive. And even after the fact, he held it on for like what felt like 3 or 4 minutes. It was like, okay, so Copeland and Moxley, and heck, I think Mox even said it after he had stopped choking him. It's like, is this all you've got? Why am I even facing you at Revolution, or words to that effect? I'm sure there are a couple of swear words in there as well. But it was just a very weird thing, which actually then made me think, are they going to change it to a 3-way with Jay White? Because
I'm hoping so.
That seems to be the logical path.
I'm hoping so, because otherwise, what is the motivation of Jay White? Again, because if I was Jay White and I'm the guy that I am, I should be the ultimate opportunist here. Why am I helping these guys out when everyone else is like, yeah? Ultimately, it is like, I think if I was Jay White, if I help him to defeat Mox, then it's going to be him and me for the championship. To which then I can turn back to being full-on dickhead Jay White. That's ultimately what my rationale for Jay White's character motivation right now is. Yeah, absolutely.
And also, I want to reiterate actually, because I've seen this message in the chat over on YouTube from Freak Magnet. Grand Slam was amazing. Again, we've said this earlier. 100% agree.
Yeah,
but this match. Just some weird things going on. Weird things going on in it, as it were. But that said, though, the crowd were having a good laugh. Like, they went up the freaking balconies and whatnot all over the place. They were having a laugh.
Can we say again? Moxley is a wanker. Moxley is a wanker.
Actually, I meant to bring this up, actually. So I made a couple of other notes of other things I've noticed during the show up to this point. And is this my attempt to try and derail this slightly? Sure, why not? But let me bring up a couple of things that I noticed.
While he's bringing this up, everybody in the audience, just so you know, we're running to a tight schedule of Jeremy's own creation. Yep. He's the one doing all the derailing, so he's got this on himself.
Yep,
so he only has himself to blame right now.
Yep, 100%. So, first of all, someone in the entranceway had a sign that said remake Simpsons Hit and Run, which Kenny Omega acknowledged and went, yes.
I didn't even notice that.
There you go. So, did you notice what happened during Copeland's entrance?
Oh, go on, please explain.
So Copeland comes running out, and you can tell he's uber energized. So he runs so far to the side of the entrance, he's then in total darkness, and you can't see him on camera. He then there's a cameraman waiting the other side. He runs so far back over, it takes ages to get there, and he's in darkness again. Then he starts going down the aisle, and normally he takes a couple of steps and stops, does his pose gimmick, and things happen. But he kept walking, and he kept high-fiving people, then eventually stopped. Then he did his pose gimmick. And nothing happened. And you can hear him audibly saying, "No pyro, fine." Because I'm convinced the production team couldn't see him because the entrance ramp wasn't raised. I just laughed. And then, of course, we got that great moment as well where the crowd sang the chorus of Metalingus. Such a great moment.
Always
I'm
good.
Really glad they didn't try to cut that off because it was a truly, genuinely beautiful moment.
No, you got to save the cut. You need to save the cut-offs for the commercial breaks, Jeremy.
Yeah, there were a couple of. If you're watching the international Triller fight feed, there were a couple of times where the commentators were talking and it just cut to break. It was quite impressive.
Absolutely, it was like, oh, come on, guys, really?
But the reason I bring this up, Matty, in an attempt to help get things back on track now, because Kazuchika Okada and Buddy Matthews. The reason I mentioned the entrance of Copeland is because I loved Okada's entrance with his laser circle. That was so damn cool.
Do you know what my immediate thought was, Jeremy, when that happened? What? It's like, okay, at some point, Okada's going to bring out a Morpher and he's going to turn into a Super Sentai. Okada Ranger 1! Right!
It was just a really cool look, though, like the camera panning around him and he's got this laser circle moving. It was just, cinema.
That was one of the best intros, and it was just a case of less is more. The lasers. Laser time, boys!
Laser.
That's one for the Decadane. A case of less is more. The lasers just did everything. It was quite an incredible show. You're talking about lack of pyro there for poor old Ledge. I'm going to call him Ledge. I'm going to make that stick. I think all of the pyro was used on Blinking Omega when he made his entrance. Because you see all the fireworks there?
He had a lot. Do you reckon someone's pushed the button, like too many buttons on the thing?
You fool! You pressed the right. You pressed that button. You were supposed to press that button. I'm sorry, boss.
There you go. But do you know what I will say as well? Moving on to this match proper, I really enjoyed this Buddy Matthews Okada match. This has had a really fun build to it. There was some good wrestling action in it. I was annoyed again. Okada's now got this very cheap finish of low blow pin. It's the current Okada finish, but this was just good fun. The crowd were into it. Buddy had some tremendous offense going. They've actually got very good chemistry as well, Okada and Matthews. So I hope we get to see another match between them. Sorry, I thought I was going to cough and I didn't. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. Gutted that, Buddy didn't win, but I think this made perfect sense in the grand pantheon of AEW. And also, excuse me, shout out to Okada's top rope elbow drop, which he's gradually been evolving from him having jumped to deliver an elbow drop to him simply falling, kind of Orange Cassidy style, to do it, to now dramatically falling to do an elbow drop.
The slight character changes in Okada to fit his new, let's call it what it is. I think Okada's on his sort of semi-retirement run, like Shinsuke Nakamura is, but only I think that his run in AEW is doing it a little bit better in that he can still ultimately lower Okada wins. But still be easier on his body because let's say this, the New Japan wrestling style is incredibly strong style. And when we say incredibly strong style, it's hard hitting. And oh my God, if you've been in there for the long haul, it takes a toll on your body. So we don't we don't decry any wrestler that wants to sort of break away from that lifestyle and just be take an easier run, as it were, which is why ultimately, as much as we are frustrated with Shinsuke Nakamura in WWE, we can totally understand why he's doing what he's doing now. The same with Kushida and the same with Okada now. It's like, good for you,
making
mate.
money.
Yeah, Good for you, mate. Absolutely.
Exactly.
And we get to see you on screen more. So yeah, but the little things that he's been doing character-wise in AEW has always been like pretty fun to see because he can do the comedy really well. You know, he can be an utter dickhead. Like all the little stuff he's doing, like I ain't gonna give you shit, as into the audience. You want me to do my Rainmaker? No, I'm just gonna flip you all off. Stuff like that. You want me to do some hard hitting things? No, I'm just gonna fully Orange Cassidy the situation.
But also, Okada's just got great comedic timing. Like,
yeah,
him just getting over the word bitch as a catchphrase, like it's. You know, some people could do it, but the way Okada does it, he leans into it a lot, and it works. And the fact that this entire match was built on the fact that Buddy called him the word bitch back, and Okada suddenly saying to people, I'm no bitch. Like, genuinely offended by this. It's little things that go a long way, and I enjoy it. That's why I enjoy this.
Yeah. I think this has been a dream match in the making for quite some time because Buddy Murphy, when he was in the WWE, when he was the Cruiserweight champion, he showed like a work rate that was second to none. Like you knew that this guy, if he ever went to like New Japan, he would fit that style so incredibly well. So to see him wrestle against Okada was just an absolute joy. Imagine what those two would have been like if it was in a New Japan ring. Like, holy Christ. And the other thing I would love to see is Buddy Matthews. I'll go back to his using his actual name now. Buddy Matthews against Omega. Buddy Matthews against Ospreay.
You can imagine. You can just imagine the matches. I mean, we saw him against Ospreay a few weeks back.
Indeed, absolutely. And we were proved right there as well. But I'd love to see Buddy Matthews and Omega. That would be an incredible match to see. I think, though, we've pretty much said all we can really say about that match. From a work rate point of view, I think it was incredible. I think they could do more, and I hope to see more down the road. I think Buddy Matthews could easily go all the way in a Continental Classic and literally be the guy to defeat Okada ultimately. As much as we want to see Takeshita do that, I think Buddy Matthews' name shouldn't be forgotten about either down the line later this year. But with that being said, we now move on to the main event, which, and I know she's in the chat right now, Harriet, the main event of an event show was hosted between two women and a woman referee. God, yes! You'd love to see it. But yeah, I absolutely loved this. I loved everything about this. Timeless Toni Storm with Luther. Luther's back, defeating Mariah May via pinfall. And it was fun, Jeremy. What did you think?
Yeah, it was all right.
Get on the build-up. It's Jeremy saying, hey, here's your build. I see your build-up now. I'm just going to swipe it off the table like I'm a cat.
So this is the thing. This, what's the way to put this? I didn't not like this match, but I don't know in hindsight what I was expecting going in. I think I was expecting it to be more, I guess just to be a bit, violent is the wrong word, but I felt that there was going to perhaps just be more violent tendencies involved. And there was a decent amount of that early on, like when Toni did, 4 or 5 hip attacks, which each of them looked even more crushing than the one before. It was freaking great. But I enjoyed the match overall. Luther being involved the way he was good fun and was helping to like keep the crowd clapping in time. Looking at you, Australia. And yeah, I thought this was good overall. I think the result was a foregone conclusion, but I also personally thought that the roll-up finish was a bit flat for me. And that's not me trying to dunk on it. That's not me trying to dunk on it for the sake of it. I think everything surrounding the story, like I said at the top of this podcast, I've thoroughly enjoyed the build-up, but going in, just with the way it was going, I was expecting it just to be a bit more brutal, I guess is one way to phrase it. But the fact it was Toni back in Australia, winning the title where she grew up and whatnot, like everything around that, it all makes perfect sense. It was a great moment when it happened. And if anything, to almost go against my own point now, the roll-up worked in that people weren't expecting it. So when it then happened, it made people go, oh, she did it! Kind of thing. Like, it actually got the surprise reaction, which was really good. But yeah, like I say, didn't have an issue with the match. It just wasn't what I was expecting going in from a build.
I don't think sometimes you need it to be strong style in order to tell a very good story. I think this was definitely Timeless Toni Storm's comeback tour. And I'm in full agreement with you. I think it was a foregone conclusion that she was going to win the championship, especially when you knew this ended up becoming the main event. And the one thing that we completely glossed over, which I'm going to bring up now, that with the exception of the Brisbane Brawl, in which the closest equivalent to anybody even being near the location of Australia was Jay White as a New Zealander, every single match had an Australian involved in it. And
hashtag local talent.
Cool. Local talent. Every one of them got defeated. With that being said, my point is gone completely other way because something's just popped into my head. At one point during Harley Cameron's match against Mercedes Mone, she used strong boob-based offense towards Mercedes. And that just popped into my head, and now I can't unthink that. But also saying, you knew it was a foregone conclusion as you reached to the main event. It's the big like hometown return of Toni Storm. It's kind of full circle that Toni Storm won the title back in our home country after a match in which Mariah May won it in her home country.
Yeah, it's kind of that's a very fair point. Kind of like some serendipitous storytelling there.
Also, Sean says, "Oh my God, Jeremy hates the AEW." Yeah, he disses it all the time behind the scenes. Sean, like we're saying,
I will not accept such slander.
Why are you so harsh about AEW all the freaking time, Jeremy? Like, why are you so bad-mouthy of it all the time? The rest of us are just trying to enjoy a show, and it is you just shitting on it all the time, Jeremy. Why are you like this?
Oh, sorry, were you talking to me?
Yes. Also, I forgot we do this when I look at you directly.
There you go. But like I say, I enjoyed. I don't want to be the buzzkill because the moment was great when it happened. The spectacle was great with the whole entrance and everything, and Luther coming down the aisle as well from what are they called? The crowd. There you go, coming down the steps from the crowd. I had a moment then. I've never been slandered so much. I'm caught off guard.
It's probably because your chair is so high.
Hey, it's a new office chair. Don't knock it. I'm just getting used to it. But the moment was great. The spectacle was great. Just wasn't what I was expecting going in. That said, also love Toni Storm's Australia-themed tights as well.
Yeah, speaking about clothes, like Sophie was having a bit of a debate to me and says, "What's Toni Storm come out as?" And I said, "She's literally come out as the flag of Australia." So I don't see that. I see the British flag. Yeah, you see the British flag because it's part of Australia, and the rest of her attire is literally the colours of the Australian flag. She
had stars on the other side as well.
Yep, she literally had the Commonwealth on her tights, and then the rest of it is like
the whole Commonwealth,
the whole like frivolity of it all, and of course it fits in with our old style technique as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely true to form.
But Matty, tell me, my opinion of the match? This is a way to get you to be able to give your opinion of it now. Is my opinion of the match, just be blunt with me, is it wrong that I thought that way maybe going in? It wasn't what I expected in my thoughts, or am I just having a moment?
I think it's a fair point to make considering the brutality that we had at the start of this feud, especially when they showed in the promo packages the fact that Mariah May did such things as literally bust open Toni with her stiletto heels and all the other stuff in the process. The fact that stuff was hard-hitting. I kind of wasn't actually expecting that, though. I was expecting Toni to just bring all of her timelessness into the match and just defeating her a different way. And I think that's what ultimately I got. I do agree with you that it kind of ended like literally, oh, that was it. She literally defeated her with a roll-up. And that's how you end the entire show on. But then you forget that when you realize as well that, oh my God, Toni Storm is historically the first ever 4-time world women's champion.
When they said that, I literally said out loud, what?
Yeah.
So Matty, pop quiz. Can you name? I'm proper derailing now. Can you name the title wins of Toni Storm?
She first.
I've had to think about it, and I think I know most of them, but
I can answer one of them quite recently. So her first one technically wasn't an actual lineal championship. However, when I think it was Jamie Hayter then defeated her for the title, they made Jamie Hayter the world champion, and it was because it was obvious that Thunder Rosa wasn't going to come back anytime soon. And then, literally by default, they turned the interim championship into a lineal championship and retroactively made Toni a world champion via that.
They retconned Toni's title reign to be canon.
Which Toni then, I think it was Toni who defeated Jamie Hayter for the championship to literally absolve
when her shoulder
all of them. Yeah, because Jamie Hayter literally was walking injured at this point. And then her three other title reigns, that was 2. I think she won it back off Saraya.
Sounds about right to me.
At one point, because Saraya won it during All In.
Yep.
And then I think it was in All Out. Toni defeated Saraya for the championships therein. Then she lost it to Mariah May, and then she won it back off Mariah May thereafter. That's her 4 runs.
There we go.
So, I remember stuff, Jeremy.
Good job. No, because it was that thing that when it was said, and then the show ended shortly after, and I was thinking, what were the wins? I the first one was the one where I'm I remember Thunder Rosa was involved, but I couldn't remember how exactly, and it was irking me. And eventually I remembered because it was interim. So eventually I got that. But it was just that stat of the first 4 time.
It was during the time where people were just literally getting hurt left, right, and center, and people were winning inaugural or whatever it is, interim championships. So I always thought was the dumb way to do this in wrestling. I understand you can have interim championships in mixed martial arts and other championships as well, but we've always been led to follow wrestling a certain way, and I think championships should always be the actual lineal championships.
I like the concept so long as you get the payoff of the actual match between the 2 people involved.
Which you kind of did with the World Championship in the end between CM Punk and Moxley, but it doesn't always pan out that way. And it ultimately, it becomes a mess when you think about it as well.
Oh, yeah, it's difficult to keep track of, especially when there's no one hard and fast rule. But that's potentially a debate for another day. But yeah, first 4-time champion, the moment was fantastic when it actually happened. You could see people genuinely happy, partly because, as you pointed out, Matty, every Aussie / local talent had lost that evening up to that point. So
legitimately was leading to this point. Once everyone else was losing, there was no way you could have everybody lose. After the literal rigmarole of going, this is a big event, now it's just a TV special, and literally the bad feeling a lot of that crowd was given, which, by the way, absolute kudos to that crowd as well. I mean, I started by literally congratulating this crowd. I'm going to say it again. The fact that they could have had all the bad feeling in the world. And by the way, apparently they booed Tony Khan when he went out for his usual song and dance. So,
oh no, really?
Yeah, exactly. Because they had any reason to be a dickhead crowd. And instead they were probably one of the most vibrant crowds AEW had. We've had some good crowds in AEW as of late. The ones that take part are literally fair game, fair dues to them. They are really,
the past,
really good.
3 or 4 weeks in particular.
Has in the weekly shows.
Was it a Collision a week ago as well? Was so good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dynamite was on fire as well. Sorry, complete continue.
So the fact that and we weren't there. But it would have felt more like a strong card to them there, because you had the Ring of Honor matches as well. It would have felt like a big, grander scale show if you were a participant there. Then all we got to see was a small slice of the cake, but they would have been treated to a hell of a show. So again, fair dues to them, absolutely fair dues to them. So I think with that, Jeremy, I think we've pretty much like wrapped up everything that could possibly be said about Grand Slam. Is there anything else you're looking forward to in the week ahead before we wrap up?
I'm just enjoying watching AEW a heck of a lot at the moment. Like, this show, massive thumbs up overall. Like, despite some of the quibbles that I had that I mentioned, this show overall was just a home run. Whatever sports superlative you want to use, a great goal, a field goal, a touchdown, trying to think of other sports, a goal, anything. This was a home run. What's an Aussie rules? Yeah, Aussie rules football goal. There you go. It was a try. Rugby. Got there in the end. But yeah, really, really good, solid show. I think we talked about how the show was advertised and stuff like that as well. If they can refine that a bit more, it'll be really good fun to see what they could do next time in Australia. Hopefully maybe a Dynamite and a Collision, because that'd be really good fun if they got both. But I do have one more thing I will add, Matty, because I want to quote the poet that is Nigel McGuinness from something that he said during the show. But I'll let you get your final thoughts out before I say it.
I think my thoughts were exactly the same as what I started the show with. I think for all the rubbish promotion in the world, I think we were treated to one hell of a card. I enjoyed myself absolutely throughout, and the fact that they're going to be doing this again next year, yeah, Tony, make it happen. Make it make it more than just a TV special. Like, give it all the promotion in the world. It's on your television. It's on your streaming platform. Actually, full on, do something with it, which doesn't just disregard it, because you were lucky that you were given one hell of a crowd. And if you continue to basically not promote shows like this properly, you're going to have diminishing returns. So grab this literal bull by the horns and literally ride it, my friend, because you don't know what you've got until you lose it. And I think the thing you need to do is now build on that groundwork. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to any potential international shows in future. Let's just hope they don't drop the ball.
And I'm sure this will come out eventually. It's not something we'll probably ever discuss on a podcast of ours here, but it will be interesting to hear from actual people in Australia. How was the show advertised locally? Were there lots of promos on television, for example? Was there a big focus over there? That is something that I'll be curious to hear down the line.
Funny you just said that. We've had somebody that's just popped up on our YouTube feed called
amazing.
Apolloco, and he said, I was there watching it back on TV. The crowd seemed almost muted. We were swearing a lot.
Really?
Most of that was edited out. Dude, you guys look like $1 million on the TV show from what we saw, my friend.
Yeah.
If you can answer our query, though, about what advertisement you guys got, that would be incredible. So,
just interesting to know. But that's interesting. That was your perception of it as well. Because now, the one thing, we'll caveat this by saying the way we watch it is via Triller TV, which is kind of the satellite feed, if you will, or almost an uncensored feed. There was one bleep on the show. And I don't know what it was for. I think it was something that Mariah May said, but that was after she had basically told Tony to F off as well a couple of times, which I found incredibly amusing. Of, you didn't censor that, but something else got censored. What did she say? But yeah, the crowd was freaking amazing. And this may bring me onto my quote in a minute from the poet saint that is Nigel McGuinness, because he had some great one-liners on the show. But the crowd were phenomenal, and the fact that you said it almost to you came across like it was muted, that's a testament to how great that crowd was. And let's be fair, Tony Khan, he owns Fulham Football Club in England. He's aware of what football crowds can be like, and he will now well and truly know what to expect from an Aussie crowd, which is why an Aussie crowd should get a full-blown special at the very least, let alone just an episode of Collision, like I was saying.
Exactly. Or even, again, a pay-per-view. Who defunct it? Who knows? Because we're getting one. The Edge. Oh, here we go. The Edge theme song sing along was huge. Yeah, it certainly was from where we sat as well. Watching it back, the mic work was shocking. The arena was hot as hell for everybody except Tony. You may say that the Tony Khan was the literal drizzling ice cream in the center of that which kind of fell to the floor. We need to double check that actually, because we did hear reports that he was booed to high heaven when he came out anyway. But Jeremy, I think with that, we are going to wrap up the show. It's been a very good stream. Thank you to everybody that's contributed to the chat. Literally, Jeremy has just done all this. Go and check out our links. Please do it, because if anything, whenever future streams pop up, you'll be the first to know via our socials. You can find us on Blue Sky. We're pretty much everywhere. But with that being said, Jeremy, where can people find you?
I mean, if you want to find what I do, Linktree/giraffe for me, that's the easy way to do it.
Yeah.
I'm a Jeremy and a giraffe, so a giraffe me. That's how it works. I wasn't going to push my own stuff today, to be fair, because I'm going to focus more on the Bunker stuff. But yeah, give us a follow here on Bunker if you want. It just be a good time just to be able to see you folks and such. And Matty, this is the link that I've got for you, so hopefully that's correct. If not, feel free to correct me. But there you go.
No. You can literally find me. There's only one or two places you can find me, because don't find me anywhere else. I ain't going to support it anymore. But you can find me under twitch.tv, MattyBoo Twitches, or you can find me under Blue Sky under MattyBoo. And I'd say also future streams. There might be something coming out next week. Again, please check out our Linktree for all socials wherever you fall. Whenever we know, whenever we put a show out, you'll be the first to know via that. I believe stuff in the future, we're going to be doing another Rumble chat along when we talk about wrestling in general. The first one we did in January was really, really fun. And also, no, we're not doing that, Sean. But also, we should be wrapping up the month with a quiz smash, which is always fun to see. And with that, my friend, guns up.
Well,
and
Matty, you see, you said, Sean, we're not doing that. Now do a guns entrance sign off. No. This is how we're signing off today. Because during the Kazuchika Okada versus Buddy Matthews match, Okada tried to walk out. He was like, no, I'm not having this. I will not participate anymore. He grabbed the belt. He started walking up the ramp. And then Buddy got on the microphone. And he alluded to the fact that, you know, he'd been calling him a bitch, but really, he was just a wanker. Which prompted the crowd to start chanting, "You're a wanker." Which then led to the poet saint that is Nigel McGuinness to say the following, quote unquote, "No one makes a wanker out of Kazuchika Okada."
Yet Buddy Matthews did.
There you go. Oh, Nigel, please never change. You're freaking awesome on commentary.
And with that, everybody, this was MattyBoo. Here's looking at you, toodaloo. Jeremy is now just going to wrap it all up with a very nice word to end it all. Jeremy, what would be that word?
Wrestling!
Bye, everybody.